Corrections. Councillor Cutler, question.
Moved by Councillor Cutler that the agenda be accepted as presented.
All in favor? Approved. Adoption of minutes from January 27th, 2025. Questions, concerns, corrections, spelling errors.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes from January 27th.
Councillor Meister, question.
Moved by Councillor Meister that the regular meeting minutes of January 27th, 2025 be accepted as presented.
All in favor? Approved. Action items. Bylaw 1797, Economic Development Committee. Abe.
So this is second and third readings of the updated Economic Development Committee bylaw. Just for your quick review here, provisions are updated or included covering quorum in the new version. Some changing in the wording around designated officer. Previously, it stated that an economic development officer had certain duties. We've added the word designate because sometimes it's not the economic development officer, but perhaps a development officer or someone else who will do that. So that covers us for that. Reduction of the committee from 10 to 8 members. And reduction in the maximum number of members from outside the town of Claresholm from 3 to 2. So housekeeping, I think, amendments by and large.
Questions, concerns? Councillor Cutler, second motion. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to give bylaw number 1797, the Economic Development Committee bylaw, second reading.
All in favor? Approved. Third reading. Motion, please.
I'll give Councillor Zimmer, sorry. I'll give bylaw 1797 its third reading.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to give bylaw number 1797, the Economic Development Committee bylaw, third and final reading.
All in favor? Approved. Five B, delegation response, Decom Energy Solar. Abe?
So council had a solar proposal for install of solar at the arena. That was at the last council meeting. And so just a follow up on that delegation. We've included some of the highlights or details from the proposal, including project cost, about $513,000 after the incentives, which are almost 40%. It would be a $319,000 project. Life expectancy of the solar is 25 to 30 years, and the projected savings of utility costs over 30 years, assuming that the assets lasted that long, would be $3.5 million approximately. A little bit of conversation. If council was interested in doing a project like this, most likely the way we would recommend to fund it is through a debenture. So there is some information on the agenda about the town's debt limits and debt limit payments, two different things. And so definitely if town was to borrow for that project, there's plenty of room. It wouldn't put too much of a dent in that. There were a few questions about insurance claims and hail damage. We did inquire with our insurance company. They hadn't had any claims for solar. They are a municipal insurance company, and so a lot of municipalities are putting up solar. The delegation kind of indicated that they were resilient to hail generally. I think that's probably supported by the fact that there aren't any. That statement supported by the fact that there haven't been any claims, but something that would be covered. Although one piece of information we found out is that there is a $20,000 deductible.
25.
$25,000 deductible for hail claims. Is that just a municipal?
That's,
Or-
yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
All of their municipalities, but it's per occurrence, so it'd be like for all the facilities. So if we had a big hailstorm, it would be like $25,000 across all the damage. But they hadn't seen any for solar, so.
That's green. So, we would recommend going to an RFP proposal process if council's interested. That way we could get more quotes and more proposals for the project. It is at threshold anyways, over that threshold where we have to request proposals. So if council wanted to, that's the process we would have to take. With the knowledge that we would only proceed if we were successful with the application from the Municipal Climate Change and Action Center. And that money is slowly being allocated. There's only a certain pool there, not to put pressure, just the reality of the situation. There is a pool of money that is being applied for actively. And so I think that's just one thing that we would need to be aware of moving forward, is there's no guarantee that we would have that, receive that money. And probably administratively, we wouldn't recommend it without that incentive, so.
Questions? Discussion? Counselor Kettles?
I personally am usually pretty conservative about these kind of assumptions that they put out as far as payback periods and pricing and so on. I mean, the reality is something's not going to last for 30 years. That's half that. We're putting it on a 40-year-old roof. There's concerns there. Price of electricity is based on a certain amount of price of electricity. That's probably not going to always be that price. But, even if we half all the expectations and double the payback, I think worst case scenario we're looking at is maybe break even with some pretty significant upsides for savings. So that's kind of where my head falls down on it. And through an RFP process, we could, double check some of that math, check some references, see what other municipalities have, that have maybe gone down this road a bit ahead of us, see what they've stumbled across. So I don't know. I guess I'd be in favor of an RFP process, is what I'm saying.
Counselor Cutler?
During that conversation, did we decide that we were just going to do the arena? Or were we looking into the cost of doing a couple more buildings?
Just the
Just
arena.
arena.
That's what we decided that night, was just to look at the one building?
And if it's extra beneficial, we can always look into adding other buildings in the future, so. Like the museum.
Counselor Carlson?
Yeah, I spoke to some folks in High River regarding their residential pools. For the last 2 years, they have actually generated more than they've used on their yearly pools, which in essence is paying for their infrastructure that they've put on, plus a couple $1,000s a year in returned energy cost. I know I've always been a proponent of solar, cautious about the cost of install for the last 10 years. But at this time and doing some of the research, it does appear viable with the climate and the economic climate that we've got right now. So I'd definitely like to see the town try to be a forward thinker on a project like this, and hopefully see that we've got some room on a future fire hall or something like that that may actually offset the cost of building in the future. And I'd be willing to make that motion if need be.
Counselor Carlson? Question?
Moved by Counselor Carlson to direct administration to initiate a request for proposal RFP process for a solar project at the town's ice arena.
Any other questions, concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Approved. Okay, 5.C, local correspondence. Old Man River Regional Services Commission. Katie. Abe?
Yep, so we have some correspondence on the agenda requesting a decision from council, and it is in reference to a subdivision application, and the town's planner, Katie Schlemp, is here to walk council through the request for decision and the subdivision proposal.
All right, good evening. So I don't see all of you usually when we have a subdivision application, and the reason being is these lands are designated as a mix of direct control and highway commercial, and lands that are under direct control do go to council as the development authority and the subdivision authority. So that's why you're seeing this subdivision tonight. Application 2024-0-185 is for reconfiguration of two titles in order to facilitate a land sale. The intent of the application is to subdivide 0.929 acres from Railway Plan RY8 for consolidation with Block 113, Plan 147N. So the lands, like I said, are designated as direct control and highway commercial. They are currently vacant, and at this time they will remain vacant, and there's no formal plans for development. Any future development plans will need to comply with the MDP, which does indicate this area for commercial growth, as well as the land use bylaw, so that direct control and the highway commercial district, any uses that are prescribed in it, as well as the standards. And Section 17 of the matters related to subdivision and development regulation, as a portion of these lands are within a 300 meter of a non-operating landfill. So we cannot, or the development authority cannot issue a permit for a residence, a hospital, or a school within this buffer. So should the applicant or the owner of the lands choose to come in later for one of those uses, we would need to get a reduction in that buffer, and that would be something they would need to undertake prior to application. So that's something to just to keep in mind, but ultimately approving the subdivision is allowable under the regulation. It just sets parameters in what development can be approved at this time. It is also noted that a portion of the property has a historic resource value of 1 attributed to it. So although we did not receive any comments from the Historic Resource Administrator, the applicant is required to get clearance from Alberta Culture and Tourism, so we have added that as condition number 5. As I said, the proposal does comply with the MDP and the land use bylaw. There's no objections that have been received, and therefore it is recommended that council, as the subdivision authority, approve this application with the 5 conditions before you, which are any outstanding taxes should be paid. If the town wishes, a development agreement be entered into and registered on title. The subdivided portion be consolidated with the lot in a manner that does not allow for any further subdivision without approval from you, the subdivision authority. A final plan of survey be provided prior to endorsement, and then, like I mentioned, that application to Alberta Culture and Tourism for historic resource clearance.
Questions? Concerns? Motion? Counselor Cutler? Question?
Moved by Counselor Cutler that the Direct Control and Highway Commercial Subdivision of Block 113, Plan 147N, and Railway Right-of-Way Plan RY8 within the east half 2612-27 west of the 4th Meridian, which is Certificate of Title number 161073785, 111252135, be approved as presented.
All in favor? Approved. Thank you, Katie. Mover.
I've got a pen here. It's not working. Just those to move her there.
Abraham.
Thanks, sorry. No, that's
If I go over top of that?
Yeah, go ahead. There you go. One more.
What?
Here.
Yeah, I'll take that guy
Thank
back.
you.
Get a refund.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Drive safe.
Thank you.
5.D, request for decision. 5.D.1, Fire Department Business Plan. Abe?
The fire chief is here to review the update of the fire department business plan. If you recall, I think this is probably the third version from the fire department. Council has updated them, and they've come to the agenda the past couple of years. So fire chief is going to review the update and review the plan with you.
Perfect. Thanks, Abe. Thank you, Council. Again, at the direction of administration, after this council had come up with their strat plan for the town of Claresholm, the fire chief was directed to develop a business plan that closely mirrored or related to the town's direction. To that end, the initial business plan for the fire department was developed in 2022 and passed by council. And each year, henceforth, an update has been provided to council and the citizens and uploaded on our social media account and made available. This year, again, the plan has just highlighted the updates in 2024 that the department's had. Some highlights include the completion of the purchase of the fire apparatus and its installation into service, the facility and upgrade and expansion, noting the CFIP application was denied, returned to council for direction, and project placed in the 2026 budget as a line item. Again, not too much, just kind of updating on the routine activities of the fire department and how we align with strat plan. One item of note is this past year has been the highest call volume for the fire department at 328 calls for service for a volunteer fire department, which is pretty close to one call a day. To that end, in the staffing estimates on the hall, I did put in, just for consideration and future consideration, a +2 to change the staffing model to potentially add a future 2 full-time equivalents to the fire department staffing model. Again, just to be clear, I'm not asking for a change in the level of service this year. This is just something for council's attention, should these trends continue. And, noting that a lot of our members do work out of town during the day and aren't available for daytime calls, it does put an increased burden on those that are left behind to respond to calls. Now, we do know that we have adopted the firefighter tax incentive, although just moving into year one, a little early to see how beneficial that's going to be long-term, but it will definitely help. But again, that was just the biggest thing this year was the increase in call volume, and if you look through the RFD, you will see that calls were up 37% year over year based calls from the previous year, so that's a pretty significant increase. And in the survey on page 12, you do, or you are able to see call volumes 2022-23 versus 23-24. Just something to note, there are grouped similar calls, so alarm, no fire, false alarm, calls like that. If we spread them out, it would take probably a pretty big sheet to make it readable, so I did group like calls, so you will see there's some pretty big columns there, but that's just kind of our nuisance calls and whatnot, but they do make up a very significant portion of our call volume. Other than that, the department and the members are grateful for mayor and council support, and yeah, we're eager to keep working with you all, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig. Questions? Discussion? Could I have a motion to approve the Claresholm?
I approve the Claresholm Fire Department's Business Plan 2024-25 update.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Ross to approve the Claresholm Fire Department's Business Plan 2024 to 2025 update as presented.
All in favor? Approved. Thank you, Fire Chief. D.2, Score Clock Grant Support Letter. Abe?
So there is a request for some support letters for the score clock. Council, if you recall, sorry, just pulling it up here. We had we talked about this at the last council meeting, but when we went to inquire, it was with the Community Foundation, I believe. And council approved us a letter of support for the Community Foundation to support minor hockey's application. Turns out that the grant fund is not applicable, or the clock is not a qualifying project, the score clock. So Recreation has been looking into other options. And we do have two possible grant funds here. The Alberta Hockey Grant, Every Kid Can Play. They'll pay up to $5,000 for programs for youth that remove barriers and equipment purchases. We've also applied locally to a local grant, the Thunder's Alumni Grant, for the score clock. So lots of irons in the fire at the moment. And lastly, the other grant source is the Richardson Pioneer Grant, and that we have applied for. That will cover the full amount if we are successful. If we are successful with only the Hockey Alberta Grant, Claresholm Minor Hockey has indicated that they would support a new clock up to $7,000, so that would leave us a little bit short. And so we'd have to find other funding at a future time. But for now, we are looking for council to approve letters of support to the Hockey Alberta's grant, and also to the Richardson Pioneer Grant, both for the score clock replacement.
Questions? Discussion? Councillor Cutler?
So reading over this Hockey Alberta grant, Every Kid Can Play, it's for programs that remove barriers and equipment purchases. Is that clock going to meet that qualification?
Is this on?
No, press little person there.
Okay, so I actually contacted Hockey Alberta and I said, hey, this is the scenario, the score clock has fallen from the ceiling where it's been attached for over 20 years. We're looking for some funding. Will this, would this be acceptable? So all she did was send me back the same information and said, and to equipment. So she did not indicate there was a barrier if we reached out. That, with that being said, I'm not counting on it, which is why I've also reached out to Richardson Pioneer, because ultimately it'd be best if we could find funding for the whole clock. And if we're not able to, if we only get half of it, then, or, up to $8,000 with assistance through the alumni and other avenues, then, at least we have the new score clock before the season next year. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. So minor hockey has $7,000 to put towards the clock?
Minor hockey has committed $7,000 to put towards a score clock. But
we have
that is, of course, if we can either get the funding for the other $8,000.
And we have money in reserves that can cover $7,000 of the other cost?
Well, I think, yeah, I think the hope is this Hockey Alberta grant might cover some of it. But we do have money in reserves that can be used to offset the purchase. We don't know how everything's going to play out and what we might be successful with, but yes, we do have reserve funds to eventually see this job get finished.
I'm of the opinion that if we have money in the bank account and Claresholm Minor Hockey has money in the bank account, I don't know why we're not just replacing the clock.
The reserve account, is that including with the advertising funds that, because it was my understanding that the advertising funds would be utilized for this sort of item.
For upgrading the arena.
Yeah, and so I think my recommendation would be try to find the money to get better value for the community. But if not, we do have the reserve funds to make this project happen. That would be my suggestion.
Do we have a timeline on the Richardson Pioneer grants?
I believe that one is March 15th.
It closes.
Yep.
And they get back to you in September?
June, I believe. But that could be, maybe I read that wrong.
Depends, I guess it depends on how eager you are to get the new clock in. If you have time, if you feel we have time to wait to throw a couple applications in and source from areas other than reserves, then we can submit these applications. If you just want to get it done, then we can do it that way too.
My concern isn't about time. My concern is about if we take a $5,000 grant from kids who get equipment versus putting up a score clock in our arena. I just don't see the benefit of taking from a Hockey Alberta grant that's beneficial someplace else. We take this money in, we put this money in a pool for these kinds of things. I think we should use it for that. That's my opinion.
Any other discussion?
I'm just the exact opposite. I think they're there, they're not guaranteed or whatever. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. It is nice. That money is there for if we're not successful with stuff like that, or, if we can afford it, great. But I mean, if we do have avenues to find a way to save that reserve for something later on down the line, I think we should at least reach out and try to get them.
Yes, I would agree with that and seeing about the grant funds at this moment of time.
I'll make a motion for the first letter of support to Hockey Alberta for grant funds.
Question?
Okay, and so just to keep in mind, I don't know if that was really clear in this conversation, but it's minor hockey that will be applying for these grants, and we'll be assisting with that. So moved by Councillor Meister to write a letter of support for Claresholm Minor Hockey's application to the Hockey Alberta grant for the purpose of replacing the score clock at the Claresholm Arena.
All in favor? Opposed? Approved.
I'll make a motion of the town to Claresholm write a letter of support for the Richardson Pioneer Grant.
Question?
Moved by Counselor Zimmer to write a letter of support for Claresholm Minor Hockey's application to the Richardson Pioneer Grant for the purpose of replacing the score clock at the Claresholm Arena.
All in favor? Approved. Opposed? Next, 5.D.3. Co-op Community Spaces Grant. Ball Diamond Revitalization. Abe?
So the Ball Diamond Revitalization Project is a project that is in Council's 2025 capital budget. Just recall, that is a Millennium Park roof replacement, Moffett Park fencing, backstop and dugout upgrades, and shale replacement on the playing field. Prices are listed for you there, Council, and you have allotted $50,000 in the capital budget, and in partnership with the Kinsman, the town has submitted a grant application to CFEP for 50% of those costs. We are going to apply to the Co-op Community Spaces Grant for the other half. If successful, that would reduce the town's portion that they would have to contribute. Deadline for this grant is March the 3rd. And just looking for direction from council on letter of support for the Ball Diamond Revitalization Project application to the Co-op Community Spaces Grant.
Discussion? Question? Counselor Carlson?
I'll make that motion.
Question?
Moved by Counselor Carlson to write a letter of support for the Claresholm minor balls application to the Co-op Community Spaces Grant for ball diamond improvements.
All in favor? Approved. 5.D.4. Fortis Community Naturalization Tree Planting Grant Support Letter. Abe?
So a little bit of grant writing happening these days. Fortis Community Naturalization and Tree Planting Grant, they offer money, I think usually yearly, although they have missed a year or two recently. But they offer community funds for naturalization products. The town does have a yearly budget for planting trees and adding to the urban forest in town. The Fortis grant will provide $2,500 for tree planting, so that would add to the budget and allow us to plant more trees in the community.
I believe I may have wrote that part wrong where I need a letter of support. I just need a letter from a counselor in regards to support of the funds, for the funding.
Questions, discussion?
I'm happy to make the motion to write the letter of support if you want it all from the council. But
It's just directing administration.
not gonna hurt, I don't think.
Just do one.
Counselor Meister? Question?
Moved by Counselor Meister to direct administration to apply for the Fortis Community Naturalization and Tree Planting Grant for tree planting in the town of Claresholm.
All in favor? Approved. 5.D.5. Winter Festival 2025. Abe?
So I guess request for decision, but also a little bit of an info brief for you council on Winter Festival, as we do have a new location this year due to the renovations at the community center. So Winter Festival takes place on February 22nd. The new location is at the Claresholm Curling Club. And at the club itself and in the north field of the facility. So the Chamber of Commerce is potentially looking at having a beer gardens. I think specifically they're looking to do hot drinks with liquor. And so there is a request on this item to approve a beer garden for the Claresholm District Chamber of Commerce. A bit more information about the relocation of the event. Fireworks will be staged over at the composting area. We're also looking for a road closure to accommodate the fireworks display. And so that road closure would be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And that would be on 59th Ave from 2nd Street to 5th Street East. Some of the events, the event is going to run from 4 to 7:45. Live music on the ATCO stage, outdoor skating. Public Works has been building an outdoor skating rink out there, hay climbing pile, snow hill, indoor market, food from the Lions Club and Welcoming Claresholm. Fire pits will be there as well, and indoor curling lessons offered. The Claresholm's Got Talent, showcase local performers, fire turning show, and the fireworks will start at 7:15. We're also partnering with the Legion's Meat Draw as well. And then after the fireworks, a movie and concession will be upstairs at the curling rink. So the request for the beer gardens is the time frame is between 4 and 7:45 p.m. And just to recap, the road closure we are requesting from 6:30 to 8 p.m. At 59th Ave from 2nd Street East to 5th Street.
Questions? Discussion?
Is the hole in the road going to be filled in by then?
Hopefully.
Drove by there for the first time the other day. Somebody told me there's a hole in the road. And I'm like, huh, there is. Interesting. I'll make the motion for the beer gardens.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to approve the Claresholm District Chamber of Commerce for the responsible sale and consumption of liquor at the Claresholm Curling Club grounds on Saturday, February 22nd, 2025, between 4 p.m. and 7:45 p.m. on the condition that an application to Alberta Liquor, Gaming and Cannabis has been approved and is displayed at the event.
All in favor? Opposed? Approved. Motion to close 59th Avenue.
I'll make a motion.
Councillor Ross, question?
Moved by Councillor Ross to approve a road closure at 59th Avenue from 2nd Street to 5th Street East from 6:30 p.m. till 8 p.m. for the fireworks display on February 22nd, 2025.
All in favor? Approved. Request for decision, 5.E.1, disc golf baskets, Willow Creek Composite High School. Abe?
So we are looking for direction from council on updating the disc golf course and, and installing baskets. Currently, we just have the poles, tones, yeah. And so just some of the feedback that we've actually had over the years is people passing through town would actually use the golf course the disc golf course, more with the baskets, and that's the standard for disc golf. It actually gets pretty decent usage, but this would definitely up the usage, and that's why we're looking at doing it. Administration has connected with the shop teacher at the high school, kind of laying out a plan or developing a plan for the shop class to build those baskets. We have sourced some of the materials from some excess materials that we have lying around, so the poles for the baskets. We have those in-house and we can provide those. Working with the high school, they have suggested that a $377 approximate cost per basket would be sufficient, and $3,397 for the total cost. So we have received a couple of quotes from other vendors for the same product, one for $5,000 and one for $7,500. We like the idea of partnering with the high school and getting the kids to contribute to something in the community, and it will actually save us some costs as well. The budget, the money funding for this project would come out of the parks material budget. It is just something that they would have to be mindful of. Recreation and infrastructure would have to be mindful of. Eating into their budget a little bit at the beginning of the year with an unplanned project, but recreation and infrastructure feel that they could manage that just fine.
Questions, discussion?
No, other than I think that's a great idea to get the high school involved. Utilizing our local assets is great.
Councillor Kettles?
I agree with Councillor Zimmer. It's nice to find opportunities to partner a bit with Livingston Range and the high school here in town. We don't get enough of those, I don't think, and I think it, budget-wise, it looks good. I think there's a marketing opportunity there. I see a picture in the future. I think it's great. Happy to make that motion.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Kettles to approve the disc golf course basket upgrade and the collaboration with the Willow Creek Composite High School as presented.
All in favor? Approved. F.1, information brief. Claresholm's acceptance to the rural community immigration pilot. Abe?
So I think word is out. Word is out now that Claresholm has been accepted to the second pilot immigration pilot program. I think most people probably know that we were part of the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot Program that started in 2019, and that closed in August 2024. We applied for the Rural Community Immigration Pilot, which is, again, a pilot program, immigration pilot program led by communities, but overseen by the federal government and IRCC. And so it's kind of a round two, I guess, of the immigration pilot. And so the town saw a lot of growth and a lot of support for economic development throughout the life cycle of the first pilot program, and councils recognizing that applied for the second one, and so happy to report that the town has been accepted to run the second pilot. The first one, I guess, just a bit of background. The first one brought 100 newcomers directly into Claresholm. When you count in their families, that goes up to about 200 the family members that came with them. And this is something that is being promoted as an economic immigration, and labor has been promoted as an economic development initiative. And so Claresholm is very rare in rare company, still the only community in Alberta to be participating in the immigration pilot program. So it's an advantage for the town. Should note that the Village of Staveley and the MD of Willow Creek councils provided letters of support for our application. They are within our region. There's a imaginary circle, 30 kilometers.
30 kilometers.
Yeah, around Claresholm, imaginary boundary. So they will be able to participate, so we'll be in touch with them about that. The second immigration pilot builds off of the first one and actually puts builds off a lot of the learnings from the first one. And so there were some learnings in terms of the employer responsibility and the employer role in bringing immigrants to Canada and workers to Canada. And so there is more responsibility, there is more training for the employers, and they will have a stronger role in overseeing the application packages and integrating newcomers into the community. As well, our economic development department will be working with local businesses to define the priority areas, and so that is some of the engagement that will be coming. Priority areas for immigration and for labor. Yeah, that's about all I have. Is anybody from council have anything else to add to that? Because I know a few of you have been in on some of these conversations. For example, this went to the Economic Development Committee, who approved participation as well.
Yeah, excuse me. I can speak to that. Both as an employer that has used the RNIT program versus the RSIP now program that's coming online, I am actually impressed with the modifications that we see within this initial phase of the program. Understanding that we've got more defined responsibilities for employers, and it's an employer-driven program, so less onus on town administration and town cost, as well as ensuring that the employers have all of their ducks in a row. And they have to put in a little extra work, which should put us in a situation where they have both better uptake and the desire to see those newcomers succeed and become valuable employees. So I'm quite happy with the initial phase of this, and I look forward to seeing the final rollout.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Kittles.
Just a question. I didn't notice the MD of Willow Creek on the list of municipalities, but I assume they're in support and that businesses in the airport area would be available to participate should they want to?
Yes, 100%, yeah. They fall within that circle, that 30-kilometer radius. And yeah, so it was the town that submitted the application, so it's the town that's awarded it. But those would be kind of participating, Stavely and the MD would be participating because they fall within that boundary.
Okay, moving on. 5.G, strategic plan update, February 10th, 2025. Abe?
So a update on council strategic plan. You've seen this format and layout previously. I think the biggest updates would be around some of the residential work, some of the stormwater work. Pine Place cul-de-sac, the services are all in place. What's left to be done out there are the shallows. Looking at getting those done hopefully within a few months here. Phase 2 of the stormwater is probably 95% done. A couple of items for the contractor to come back and clean up that weren't finished last year. Obviously, the area structure plans, a fair bit of movement with residential development and planning. Anything else any questions from council on any of the projects or the updates here?
Councillor Kettles?
You mentioned phase 2 of stormwater. That's just part of phase 2, is it not, that we've been working on? There's more to phase 2?
No, that's
it?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, moving on, 5.8, council committee reports. Anything anybody wants to add? Okay. Council, 5.I, council resolution status. Take it for information. Information items. Questions? Motion? Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to adopt the information items as presented.
All in favor? Approved. Motion to go in camera. Councillor Meister. Question?
Moved by Councillor Meister to go in camera at 7:52 PM for the following items. A, intergovernmental relations, SWIP Section 21. B, confidential evaluations, SWIP Section 19. C, economic and other interests of a public body, SWIP Section 25.
All in favor? Approved. We are in camera. Camera off, please.